live from Lansing. Hi, everybody. Testing, testing to our YouTubers. We're starting. You're right in the big frame. Okay. Well, how about out there in YouTube land, Trevor? Thank you so much. We'll welcome everyone to the fall MiCAN Members Meeting. We're very pleased today to be holding this in coalition with the Michigan Energy Michigan Jobs, a large coalition of lots of environment and climate groups that have really been working very, very hard on all the legislation that you're going to hear a little bit about. So what I'm hoping to do is give you a little bit of a welcome to Michigan Climate Action Network, some of the things and pieces that we're working on, how we're thinking about things, and how these structures we hope we're building are really going to mobilize this climate movement. Because I don't see the excitement out there enough for tomorrow's the biggest day of climate action in the state, right? Are you guys ready? All right. This is like the pregame, okay, the way that I think about it, right? When we have these kind of moments, we need to savor them. We need to get invested in them. This is your chance, right? We're here today to make sure you're ready and you're prepared to go and that you're energized, because we're going to be here all day tomorrow as well. So you're going to hear from Michigan Climate Action Network, some of the things we're doing, and some of our staff and other pieces for about the next 15, 20 minutes, and then we'll go straight into some of the logistics and pieces that you might need to know for the big day of action tomorrow. Dominique Campbell, who helps run the Michigan Energy Michigan Jobs Coalition, will be here shortly to give that part of this talk. We've always had a few technical difficulties today. Michigan Environmental Council's Carly Knott will then go over some of the bills that are in progress and some of the many, many changes that are happening to them. And from Michigan League of Conservation Voters, Hudson Glenview will then talk about how do we talk to our legislators. We're going to interact with these folks tomorrow. What are some of the best tips and practices to do that? So for everybody here, thank you. For those of you out there in YouTube land, we hope this serves as an intro to MiCAN, but also prep for tomorrow. Just a brief a little land acknowledgement here for Lansing. Lansing occupies the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of the Anishinaabe, Three Fires Confederacy of Ojibwe, Ottawa, and Potawatomi peoples. Specifically, this city resides on land ceded in the 1819 Treaty of Saginaw. And I'm going to go straight to, you guys hopefully know, I guess I should introduce myself, Denise Keel, Executive Director, Michigan Climate Action Network. But what I really want to do is make sure you know who our team is. Not with us today, because we're very sorry to have conflicted with Yom Kippur today. So not with us today, having her holiday, is Serena Amdor. She's our Digital Community Manager. She's in Traverse City. She has been a MiCAN employee longer than I have, is our joke, since May of 2022. She beats me by 1 month in our tenure here, and she's passionate about working for MiCAN because she wants to create those community spaces that support individuals in being sustainable climate activists. Colleen, both Colleens, well, you're not till later. These two come up.
Hi everybody, can you hear me okay? Okay. I'm Colleen Addy, she, her communications manager with MiCAN. I've been with MiCAN for about a year now. I celebrated my year anniversary in August. And I'm currently working remotely from Chicago, but I traveled to all of you today from my parents up in Traverse City, where I got to jump into Lake Michigan yesterday, which was refreshing both in the literal sense and also in the way of just reminding us why we do what we do and why we're trying to protect our beautiful Great Lakes and state. So I'm glad to be back in Michigan having a little bit more of a local impact than I did in Chicago at a regional nonprofit. Erica, do you want to?
Hello, Erica Bolden, she, her pronouns. I will be the Line 5 engagement coordinator. I'm coming out of Grand Rapids, so I will be in West Michigan working with Congressional District 3. And I've been with MiCAN, this is The start of week 3 for me, so very new to this, but I'm super excited, mainly because I'm really passionate about this planet in general. Like all of us are. I'm super passionate about making sure that people have their voices heard, and bringing sovereignty back to the people who deserve it most. So I'm looking forward to be able to do that with this position and with everybody here.
Right, so 1 year and 1 month, 1 year, 1 year and 3 weeks, right? A year ago, we were in Lansing for strategic planning, and that plan didn't come out until November. And so I think we're pretty pleased with the work that this new team has been able to do in less than really a year. The first big thing that I want to make sure everyone understands, for those in the room, you're seeing our artistic director and the interactive banners that we had at the Michigan Climate Summit this year. And really one of the big pieces that Michigan Climate Action Network hopes to bring to the climate movement is the idea of this cultural transformation, right? Our strategic plan goes ahead and lays out what we need to see is that durable public support that makes this as just the right thing to do. We believe that that involves a lot of different cultural components, right? What's your movement without art, without music, without poetry, without the human heart and spirit as part of it? And that's been a huge piece that we tried to bring to the Climate Summit. Andrew Sopolis, thank you, from Sierra Club, helped get this idea off the ground. And we're gonna be expanding this, but I'd like to invite our artistic director, Colleen Ludwig, who's a professor of art at Oakland University, to talk just a little bit about what she's got over here and how that committee's shaping up. Come on up.
Hi, everybody. I'm Colleen Ludwig, and I had that lovely introduction from Denise. Denise and I met about last March when she was planning the summit for Oakland University, and we just came in contact with each other and just right away found we had a similar spirit in terms of how art can feed the soul and keep people connected and keep motivation for the work on the climate. So I'm very pleased to be the artistic director at MiCAN and look forward to continuing cultural connections, climate cafes, and ways that we can process our emotions, our feelings, where we can express things that are happening in different creative ways and bring artists and activists together for creative expressions. This creative expression here is, we were calling it Sharing Our Stories, the Climate Banners. And we were very successful at the Climate Summit, but we decided we wanted to keep it going until the end of the year. There's about 9 questions that we are posing to people to answer on these banners, and we want to fill these banners up by the end of the year with your answers to these pressing climate questions like, what have we lost that makes you grieve? What motivates you to work for the climate? What does your community need to thrive into the future? Questions like that. So we have the banners here today and tomorrow for you to add to, and we also have an online form that you can add to, and we have a QR code and online address on a little piece of paper you can pick up. And I reviewed our 24 answers this morning and found that on the online track, you maybe have a little bit more privacy, a little bit more time, and give a few more thoughtful, a little bit more elongated answers, and we will be adding those to the climate banner. So I'm really excited about this online form as another way to engage with the project. So please, before you leave today, either take a flyer or add something to the banners. At the end of this, we're going to be archiving it either with the Oakland Historical Society or with another historical society. So I think it's a very exciting moment to just capture the mood. We did these June 2nd, and if you ask the question, what emergencies is Michigan already experiencing, that answer is already vastly different today than it was in June. So thank you, Denise.
Thank you, Colleen. we're going to keep this project going in many different ways. And the other big way that we see, most of you are aware, I was a university professor for about 15 years before taking over Michigan Climate Action Network. And what better way to transform culture than through education, right? And one of the big pieces that I think it's kind of interesting, when I first started, I said, oh, you can't rely on that education background. You got to go make all these other new connections. And that's true. But why wouldn't I rely on my other expertise in that network as well, right? And this has really come together organically. I gave a talk out at the Michigan Association for Environmental and Outdoor Educators a year ago at the end of September, actually. A lot of things have happened this year, if you are paying attention out there in MiCAN land. And they were so inspired that they said, okay, Denise, that's great. You want us to talk about climate. You want us to teach climate more. You want us to do these things. We got to make sure that we're doing this correctly, and we need your help. And so we formed a climate education action team. We need a new acronym, I know, CEAT, I don't know what it is yet. We'll work on that part, right? But what Bridget Booth, who is the director and membership director of Mayo, that's how you do their acronym, along with Eileen Bruckenstein. So if you ever call up Eagle and their environmental education, you want a program, or you see all the great curriculum that's coming up, please know that's one human. That's Eileen, who does all of that work. And that's why we kind of thought bringing together the Mayo Alliance and the network, the MiCAN network, into that climate fold would really be a powerful educational piece. These are K through 12 teachers, but these are also all of your nature center folks, all of the interpreters that are out there, right? All of the different folks in non-classroom or informal education that have a variety of ways to bring climate into it. And the other piece that why this was so important to have Eileen and Eagle on board, to me, even 2 years ago when the My Healthy Climate Plan first came out, that education wasn't a huge prong of the plan, was a kind of missed opportunity from my perspective. And that's the true goal of this committee, to support educators across the state in making sure that they have resources and access to the best climate curriculum. We mean that interdisciplinary, right? Not just in our science classes, in our art classes, in our poetry classes, right? In our humanities, in every single piece. So we try to support educators in doing that and getting them resources, but our ultimate goal is to feed in how education can be a strategy to implement our My Healthy Climate Plan. So I'm super excited about this. If you want to see us again in person, Erica and I will, and Brendan, will be at Brendan, our intern from Western Michigan University. Stand up, Brendan. Now you got to show this room who you are. I know our YouTubers don't get to see him. If you didn't get to meet Brendan Mortensen-Seguin, yes, you can give him a hand. That's okay. I'll talk about you a little bit later in this, but we also did a report on the 15 public universities and what they're doing to combat climate. And you can catch all three of us again at Grand Valley State University on October 16th, 17th, and 18th. We'll be doing a keynote presentation on how education and climate can really help us do this cultural piece. So I'm super proud. These are all the folks, right? In a wonderful big network, we get to engage lots of different people and lots of different faces. So I let you know that our strategic plan is just barely 1 year old at this point, right? So we were in Lansing a year ago in the board meeting rooms and writing out all of that plan. In November, we released it to all of you, to our MiCAN members. And really, our core role is to serve as that megaphone, to make sure that the climate actions that you're all taking and doing are announced, are broadcast to the world. We're connecting those climate leaders. That's what these membership meetings, that's what our steering committee, that's what these different education and artistic pieces are all about. How do we continue to connect and support the folks who are taking that bold climate action? And we think our overall impact, right, what we're trying to do is make sure all of those coordinated actions are making sure we are either meeting or exceeding the goals of the My Healthy Climate Plan. We were at 79 member groups and holding for many, many years. And in this last year, even kind of without trying, but just going out and doing some of the engagement that we've done with the art and with the education and the summit this year, I'm proud to say we're at 104 groups as of right now. So yeah. Huh? Now, I think that should have a bunch of zeros on the end of it, and every group should be part of us. So we're very proud of that piece. What do we mean by being the megaphone for equitable climate action? In 2022, we published the Communities Leading on Climate Change, right? And a lot of folks refer to that as the Cities report that talked about the 17 communities and the goals they had. That fed right into the My Healthy Climate Plan, right? And how we were going to meet these goals. Again, we're trying to do the same thing with just releasing our universities leading on climate and how the universities, they're their own ecosystem, right? They're their own city in so many ways. They have their own power plants, they have their own cafeterias and living and residents. So they're a huge impact when we think about how they can be a part of this solution. And I'm gonna invite Colleen back up here, Ati. I know we have two Colleens, so it gets confusing. So stay with me to talk about the other couple pieces.
Thanks, Denise. So at the beginning of this year, we launched kind of an affinity group of communicators at environmental organizations all across Michigan, which we call the Michigan Climate Communications Network. Our goal with this group was really to connect all of our communicators across the state towards more unified messaging to promote climate action going on locally across the state. And we still have a very engaged group that convenes each month where we just offer each other support, air out frustrations in some cases, and really just make sure that we're keeping each other in the know and promoting all of each other's good work. And the next piece here that we are excited to launch with all of you today, and with generous support from the Colina Foundation, is our Climate Champion Award. This year's theme for the awards is ending the era of fossil fuels. So this year we will be recognizing folks who are working towards utility accountability, or maybe shutting down coal plants or Line 5, and anything of that nature. So we will have 3 categories for the award. The first is the Climate Champion Award, which recognizes a professional working that's working on climate action. The second one is the Climate Action Award, which will go to a volunteer or an individual that's doing outstanding work towards climate action. And then the third will recognize a young leader. So it'll go to a student or youth that's working on climate issues. So we're excited. We're launching them literally today, and you guys can go, if you go to our About page, we're accepting nominations all the way through November 3rd. And then we will be announcing them at our December members meeting in a couple months. And a fun little caveat emptor is really think about who you nominate, because you just never know where they might end up. In our first edition of the Climate Champion Awards, Denise was the recipient of the Climate Champion Award, and here she is with us today, so still inspiring all of us. And with that, I'll turn it over to Erica.
We're just really excited to be able to highlight people. I think in this really tough work, it's hard to continue when you don't have those examples or you don't have the encouragement. So more than anything, we're just excited to bring engagement in that sense. We not only deserve to be recognized, but celebrated as well. And I think everybody enjoys a celebration. So hopefully you all can make it there.
It's just such the spirit of MiCAN, right? This is a serious subject, and we live it every day. But again, we also feel that if we're not having some fun, if we're not partaking in the joy that it is to be a human in this time, then we're missing something, right? And so we want to be able to celebrate all of that work that is out there. So the other big prong of work that we do is, of course, to build and mobilize this climate movement, right? So what we're not putting out on that megaphone and trying to get the rest of the world to notice, internally, we've tried to create a lot of structures over the last year to really help us not only build, but mobilize, right? We gotta be ready for days like tomorrow, and we can be much more prepared for these moments that we need to take an opportunity to be part of. And so we've been doing a few pieces. The first is our Community Voices series, and so we try to host this monthly. It comes out about 6 times during the year. It's a monthly classic kind of webinar series, but the whole point, again, is to highlight those local climate leaders. And so I live in Kalamazoo, so we did our first members meeting as a joint Community Voices series to highlight the work that was going on from the Kalamazoo Climate Crisis Coalition, our friends at West Michigan Environmental Action Council, and our friends at Western Michigan University's Climate Change Working Group, right? We went on a lovely forest walk with Tina data from Environmental Defense Fund that day at our Kalamazoo Nature Center that has converted a whole forest into carbon sequestration, and it's a teaching and learning opportunity, right? That's the kinds of things that we want to make sure that we're broadcasting out in that Community Voices series. And many of you, some of you at least in the room here, are now part of our steering committee. And so the steering committee, we want to make sure MiCAN is super where we need to be. And those are the folks that we're going to work together and in concert with to do campaign alignment, to make sure that we're meeting those needs. All of the challenges and successes at the local level should be heard at the state level and beyond. And I see Janet Zahn from Grand Rapids Climate Coalition out there. Do you maybe want to just come up and tell people maybe why you're a steering committee member and part of this whole work? Other steering committee members are welcome to come up. My Kalamazoo Climate Crisis Coalition is a member too.
Thanks, Denise. Yeah, I'm Janet Zahn, co-chair of the Grand Rapids Climate Coalition. We're a grassroots group with 85 member groups, and our purpose is to influence policy in the Grand Rapids area, focusing on climate justice and sustainability. We work to lift up the work of all of our member groups, which includes like WEMIAC and our local Sierra Club and MLCV and Citizens Climate Lobby, all these. So we work on lifting up their work, and then we also recognize that we can fill in the gaps with policy issues that we don't see being actively worked on in the Grand Rapids area. Like currently we're working on supporting efforts for Butterworth landfill, which was a Superfund site for many years. We also are working as a 20-year land use planning document. It's great to be part of MiCAN and be able to lift up and connect to all the work that's happening.
Right? You can't be in all those places, but we want that, make sure that the local communities and those voices are absolutely represented throughout the network. So that's where we're going with our steering committee. And then you're at a members meeting today. We hope that the goal of these is going to be to really bring all of those different pieces together, right? Like we're doing today. What have we been talking about at our community voices? How is the steering committee progressing? What is our board up to? How are we going to plan the next amazing climate summit, right? We just had our board meeting today, and we're going to announce some new members next month. Right now, we're a very small board, as MiCAN is on just an incredible path here to move forward as an independent organization. I'm very grateful. Michigan Environmental Council is our fiscal sponsor. Thank you, thank you. We just met at those offices today. Did Secretary Smith or Treasurer Porter want to say a word about being on the MiCAN board? Somebody want to come up? Tom Porter is really a founder of the Michigan. On the first climate rally in DC, right? New York City. On the bus, folks said, where is the Michigan Climate Organization, right? Who can say climate out loud back in 2015? A lot tougher times. And Tom, now on our inaugural board. I'm so pleased. Come up and say a word.
Thank you, Denise. Actually, the Climate March was in 2014. It took us a little while to figure out how to get everybody in the room to talk about this and decide that it was a great idea. And it was a hard thing to do at that time because it's just a few years ago, but every time somebody would say the words climate change or global warming, somebody would instantly, people were afraid of that. And we knew that until we got it out and could talk about it, then it would be impossible for people to know what it was. So that's what really got this started, and it got started in 2015. Tremendous achievement that this and other groups have done to be able to elevate this issue so that we can talk about it in the state, we can meet about it, we can plan on a future that is action than if we don't. And this tomorrow, today's work, tomorrow's march are so important because it's 2023. It's almost 2020, and it's done. And we have hardly begun. And so, this act now to make up for lost time is just incredible. We have to go faster. And there are now, can't replace the UN, and we can't climate summits when they come. We can't even control our own legislature half the time, but we can make a difference where we live and work. And so it's so rewarding to have community groups starting up and taking this on in their communities. It's just a fantastic achievement. And MiCAN is just delighted to be able to be the web for all of that and the megaphone, as Denise says. So we've had a big year. Getting Denise was a huge achievement for MiCAN. Getting a new fiscal sponsor, the Michigan Environmental Council, was a huge win for MiCAN. And having us all here today and getting organized for a very powerful, urgent movement in the next several years is what it's all about. So I'm happy to be a part of it. I'm happy that you're a part of it. And I have to excuse myself because I have a dinner in Indianapolis in a few hours, but I wanted to be able to greet everybody and thank you very much for coming. Secretary of the board for the moment, one Conan Smith of the Michigan Environmental Council. And have a good day tomorrow.
Freshwater. We are responsible to properly care for the Great Lakes and hold those who don't responsible for their actions moving forward and as they have before. But with ambitious goals, Michigan Climate Action Network is prepared and ready to make those effective changes and bring sovereignty back to this beautiful state and the people who resided here and always have.
Thank you. What a pleasure it is to be a part of this team, right? And welcome, Erica, in doing this work and expanding that whole piece. So while we're here today, I see Dominique up there. You know, what's happening tomorrow, everybody, right? What we've been doing. Folks, I got to tell you, right, this is our moment. So I was in Kalamazoo for a youth rally by a youth group that coalition helped create and found, the Ardea Youth Climate Coalition. There were about 75 people at a march in Kalamazoo on Friday, March 15th. I heard 75,000 in New York City that following Sunday, the 17th. I hope we get 750 tomorrow. How about that? We'll keep with the 75, put another 0 on there. Is that what we're headed for? At least, right? I'd love to say it's even 75,000. Well, wait, well, you know, we're building action. We're getting there. This whole day of action is happening tomorrow, and Dominique is going to come up and let us know what we need to know about all of that. And then don't worry, we've got Carly Knott, remember, she's going to talk about that Clean Energy Future Plan, some of the bills and some of the details that you need to know, and messaging and how we're thinking about and what subs, all that fun legislator lingo kind of means. And I'll also talk just a little bit about some of the other environmental justice priorities, which are working their way in to the substitute bills. This is how it works, folks. And our legislators, again, they have told us over and over and over, Denise, keep the pressure on. You gotta show that folks want this, care about this, demand it. We know the polling, 70% of Michiganders believe X, 66% support the My Healthy Climate Plan, 70% support clean energy solutions. It's time to show up and make sure that those polls are the actual reality, right? And I'm gonna turn it over to Dominique, tell you everything that you hopefully need to know, and maybe more about tomorrow, yeah? What time we gotta get up? Early. Who? All right, come on up. Do you got slides or anything?
Nope.
All right, we'll just leave that.
Nope. Climate warriors, how are y'all feeling? Make some noise. Are you all excited to amplify our voice tomorrow? And really excited to be here with all of you. My name is Dominique Campbell. I have the awesome pleasure of being the Deputy Director for the Michigan Energy, Michigan Jobs Coalition. One of the many, is a coalition of 40 plus climate focused groups all across the spectrum. And we've all partnered together to really curate what is going to be a special day in Michigan climate history. We're looking forward to mobilizing, actually our RSVPs, when I just checked this morning, we are pushing that 700 number. So I'm confident that tomorrow we'll have a phenomenal turn in the name of tackling the climate crisis head on. We're going to be highlighting and celebrating all of the work that all of you in this room have put together to just get climate in Michigan as far as it is. We're going to be putting pressure on our lawmakers and our legislators, who we love, but we have to hold accountable. Somebody spoke about accountability. So we're going to be raising our voice and owning our power to let our lawmakers know that we want them to push this clean energy package through. And that, that's the start, but we certainly, even after that we win that, we have so much more to do. And so tomorrow is really a momentum builder for our entire community, to really just, give us that extra shot of caffeine, that extra shot of energy that we need to continue this fight, and to win the legislation that we need to win, but to continue pushing even further, and to also understand that, it takes a village. I truly believe that. And the climate community is, I always tell people, and I'm a Marvel Comics fan, so I always refer they're using their own unique strengths to really, truly save this planet, to save our communities, and to make it a safer, healthier place for all of us to thrive in. So round of applause for yourself, because you all are real-life superheroes in this work, and we're just really excited. So it'll be from 9 a.m. That's when we're going to get started, 9 a.m. With our lawmakers. We'll have some live music to keep the energy high. We'll be hearing from some of our lawmakers. We're doing a press conference. Shout out to MLCV, who's in the room. We have a bunch of young people coming from U of M, Grand Valley State, Northern Michigan, all over from different colleges, all across the state, to lift their voice and be heard. And they're going to be doing a youth, not a youth, they're like college students. I feel weird calling college students youth, but young people, and I'm only 35, so I'm going to put myself in that category, but young people are going to be leading a march around the Capitol, and it's just going to be a powerful day, and so super excited to have you all. Leslie, our phenomenal campaign director, she's phenomenal in and of herself, so I want to give you some space to talk just broadly about the campaign.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Leslie.
YouTubers,
Okay.
from the mic, sorry.
Yep. I was loud. I figured everyone could hear me. Hi, everyone. My name is Leslie Joy. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I'm the campaign manager with the MEMJ Coalition. Early on in this year, Dominique did some really meaningful work with the MEMJ Coalition on establishing some legislative priorities, coming together as a united front in a once in 40 years trifecta to try to pass some meaningful climate and clean energy legislation. I was able to join the team in May and put together a 25-week campaign plan, and we are in the final countdown. We are in the last phase, which is to get out our legislative votes. It's to, again, increase that education and engagement at the individual legislator level, because in order for us to have that policy change that all of us in this room desperately want, even if it's just a starting point, means we need 20 votes in the Senate, and we need 56 votes in the House, and we need the governor to sign the bill. And so tomorrow, 750 people in Lansing really changes the conversation. It shows why this is popular all across the state. And I live by a personal quote. I've worked in campaigns for the past 8 years, which is never doubt that a group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. All of you is that group of thoughtful, committed citizens. And with your voice, your passion, your stories, the science, the information, the data to back it up, we can pass historical climate and clean energy legislation in 2023. So if you have any questions, a big shout out to Denise, who's been a part of our grassroots committee, who has helped us so much with this bill. This is a comprehensive campaign from communicating to our legislators, our earned media programming, our grassroots outreach, our government affairs. This is truly a statewide unified effort. And so thank you so much for being a part of it. We're excited for tomorrow. If there's anyone else that you feel like could get fired up and get in their car tomorrow to join us, it's never too late. And if you have any questions about how you can stay involved and how you can have the biggest impact, I take a lot of my guidance from all of you, but I'm always happy to be helpful. And so big thanks to everyone, and excited for tomorrow.
Well, and if Dominique looks familiar, she was the DJ at the Michigan Climate Summit, and she's going to be, I think, emceeing a lot of tomorrows. So you see, she's getting her rest. She got to go get her rest. I know what that's like, right? It's always fabulous to me to meet a person who has more energy than I do. That doesn't happen very often. And so being involved with these fine people has been really amazing. The art will be there again tomorrow. So please tell your friends, right, about the way to do that digital submissions. And our friends from MiCA, Michigan Clinicians for Climate Action, will be there with some other lawn tabling pieces where you can get your prescription for climate action. It's going to be a really fun, interactive piece that MiCA is doing. They're a great group, work with CCL all the time. So if you haven't, right, that's how you register, but that's tomorrow. So I want to invite up now Carly Knott, who's from Michigan Environmental Council, our clean energy and climate specialist. She has been working on these bills. She is reading every word so that many of us do not have to, and working with the substitutes and how it's all going to work. And so I'm just really honored that she came and joined us today to talk us through what are some of the top line bills, what is some of the messaging, and what are some of the things that you should know about as we go into this big day of action. So, and thank you for your computer today as well. If you showed up early, we had a few technical pieces. So Carly's a pinch hitter in many ways. Come on up.
Okay. Put down. Hello, everyone. I'm Carly Knott, she, her pronouns. I am the Energy and Climate Policy Coordinator at Michigan Environmental Council. So I'm just going to give you an overview today of some of the top bills that we're advocating for tomorrow and kind of how to advocate for those. So I'm going to try to keep it quick and snappy, too. So just wanted to give you a little background. We have 2 climate packages introduced in the Senate and the House. The Senate introduced theirs first in April. The House went a little bit later in June, making some additional changes before introducing. And then we've already taken testimony in the House and Senate Energy Committees back in June. And then last week, they brought the Senate bill package back into committee and took testimony on that last week. So right now, kind of where we're at is the Senate is taking action first. They're working to negotiate substitute versions of their introduced bills so that they can take those up in committee and vote those new substitute versions out. So currently, they're working through those negotiations. There might possibly be a committee hearing this week. They're usually on Thursdays. That's if the substitutes are ready to go and to be voted on. If not, and it takes a little bit longer, then it might end up being next week, but they're going to take action really soon and taking votes to vote those out of the committee. So just to kind of... Yes, so the substitute is just how they make changes to the introduced legislation after they've introduced it. So they make additional edits to the introduced bill, and then they call it a substitute, and they'll put that up in committee, and the members will adopt the substitute to make those changes to the bill before they vote it out of committee. Good question. Okay, so just wanted to set the scene a little before diving into what each bill entails. So kind of the bottom line of our advocacy day tomorrow is we want to advocate for strong bills. We want to not keep weakening the versions of the bills that we have, caving to utility pressure and things like that. But we still want to encourage our legislators to support the bills and to vote for those bills when the time comes. This is going to be a huge and legislation that our state is taking. It's been a long time since we've had the opportunity to pass climate action, so we're really excited about this package. We understand that a lot goes into negotiating and getting the votes when you have a tight majority, but we think that the substitute versions as they stand now are still pretty great. So what I'm going to be covering is kind of where we think the bills are headed, what those substitutes are going to look like when they come to committee next week. So the first bill we have is Senate Bill 271. The House version is 4759, and this is our Clean Energy Standard Bill. I put the sponsors up there as well. So this bill sets a standard for renewable energy and carbon-free energy. So as the substitutes stand now, we have some metrics looking to reach 60% renewable energy by 2033. This is a standard that all utilities in Michigan will have to meet. Carbon-free energy, as the substitutes stand now, we're reaching 100% carbon-free by 2040. And so carbon-free is a little bit different than renewable. It just means that you can't give off carbon emissions, so that kind of factors in existing nuclear facilities that don't produce any carbon emissions but may not be considered renewable under our current definitions. So the big thing, like key point for those standards is kind of the timeline we have and the definitions of what counts as renewable and carbon-free energy. So kind of as a coalition with Michigan Energy, Michigan Jobs, we've been fighting for 60% renewables by 2030 and 100% carbon-free by 2035. They've extended that timeline a little for the substitute, as we see here. Not by much, so it's okay. We're kind of accepting that we're going to have to make some compromises to get it passed, but we definitely don't want to see those timelines extended any further out. So that's going to be a key point when you're advocating, that we don't want to keep pushing the timelines out and out, because then it'll just be the status quo of what the utilities are already doing. Kind of some other points that are included in this bill, the substitute raises the distributed generation cap, and that is for rooftop solar, and how many households can participate in the rooftop solar programs with the utilities and receiving kind of credits for that. So in the substitute, they raise the cap from the current 1% to 5% retail, which effectively, if we are measuring it by the previous cap, is 17.5% from that 1%. So that's a pretty big lift in the distributed generation cap. We always want to kind of see that raise more, but we think this is a good starting point. Some other things in this bill are energy storage targets, so making sure that utilities are required to build out battery storage, and it sets it at, I think, 2,500 megawatts for all of the utilities. So we have that included. And then also there is a community solar pilot program that's included in this version that is meant to capture some of the Solar for All federal dollars, and that program that is available. I know a lot of groups care a lot about community solar, and so we're always looking to expand that program and allow for more community solar in our communities. So next I just wanted to go over some quick ways to kind of message on this bill. Yes, question.
Before you leave that slide, could you make a quick comment on the differences between renewable energy and carbon-free energy?
Yeah, so renewable energy, we already have definitions in statute. We have kind of a 15% standard currently. And so we have it laid out what the renewable energy is. It doesn't include things like nuclear and some other pieces. And so carbon-free is just a little more loose of a definition, to where you can't have any carbon emissions from the energy. So that would include things like nuclear that don't have carbon emissions, but we still wouldn't want to consider renewable under that definition. I believe so. Yes. Okay. So here's just some loose guidance. Definitely we'll have another presenter to talk about lobbying in general and kind of different points that you can use when lobbying, but I just put up some of the benefits that come from passing this bill. The big one is obviously the climate impacts and working to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions and slowing some of those worse impacts like the extreme weather, the flooding, the wildfires. So you can always mention that. We're also reducing the health impacts, switching away from coal and natural gas towards clean energy can reduce rates of asthma, lung cancer in communities. And then we also usually like to touch on the costs because our Republican talking point is that this is going to cost a lot. But what we've shown in our studies is it's really not, because renewable energy is the cheapest form of energy. Once you build out that infrastructure, you don't have to keep paying for the sun and the wind as you're taking in that energy. So studies have shown that if we adopt these bills, then the average household bill will be reduced by $145 on their energy bills. And then we're also doing this because there's a ton of federal funding coming in right now that is available to Michigan. But in order to take advantage of that, we need these bills and the infrastructure in place. So there's $5.3 billion available over the next decade that we can achieve and bring to Michigan by passing these bills. And then the last kind of messaging point on this one is talking about the reliability of clean energy. We think that clean energy is just as reliable, if not more so, than our current system. We see there's a lot of reliability issues in our energy systems right now. So having that battery storage component in the bill is going to help ensure reliability. And then there's also some language in there to ensure that the regional transmission organizations are still kind of in control of making sure that our utilities have the resource adequacy they need so that there's no blackouts or brownouts or anything like that. Any questions there?
Storage, when is the, you said 2,500 megawatts, by what time period?
I would have to check, but I think it's by one of the dates, 2040 at the latest.
Dealt with at all in the current?
Yeah, so I think the current substitutes have existing biogas that currently have renewable contracts will be grandfathered in under this system. Yeah, no new biogas, as far as I know. Yeah, and so this is all still in negotiation, so this is just kind of the latest that we've heard. And I know across the environmental community, we all have slightly differing opinions on, you know, what's allowable and what's the best, like, different types of energy to be included. So definitely you can tailor your advocating as much as you want, but trying to build a coalition of we want these bills to pass and we want to make sure our legislators are supporting them. Okay, so the second bill in the package is Senate Bill 502. The House version is 4760. So Senator Schenck actually reintroduced this bill, which is why the numbers don't match up with the other bills. It was 272, but now it's 502, just so she could add more into that bill. So what this bill does is it expands the authority of the Michigan Public Service Commission, which is the entity that regulates our investor-owned utilities. So what this bill does, it allows them to factor in equity, climate, and affordability explicitly into the decision-making process when they're evaluating integrated resource plans, which is the process by which our main utilities get their energy resource kind of combinations approved. So they plan out where they're going to get their energy from, and then the MPSC has to approve it. There's a lot more to that process, but keeping it a little high level there. This bill also requires that every time they have one of these cases, the MPSC will have to hold public interest hearings in their communities. I think the way the sub is working out, we'll divide it up between like the 4 judicial districts, and they have to have one hearing in each of those locations. And then they're going to take that public input and use that as they're deciding their IRPs, taking that information into account. Any questions there? Okay, so the main thing with this bill is it's really the bill that allows the MPSC to hold utilities accountable to their climate goals, to affordability, things like that. So it's actually a really great bill for doing that, and it kind of touches on those 2 other pieces, making sure that our bills are affordable and that we're actually addressing greenhouse gas emissions in the integrated resource plans. Okay, and then the last bill is Senate Bill 273 or House Bill 4761. This is a bill to increase our energy waste reduction. So currently we have standards for our investor-owned utilities that they have to meet a certain percentage of energy waste reduction compared to their prior year. So that's basically what we call energy efficiency. So there's a lot of different improvements you can make, weatherization, switching to more efficient appliances, changing out light bulbs, things like that. The utilities have to devote a certain amount of money into achieving these energy efficiency goals. So currently, the goal is set at 1% for electric, I believe, and then gas is 0.75. So the substitutes change that so that the electric utilities have to meet a minimum of 1.5% energy waste reduction, which we often shorten to EWR, and then the gas utilities have to meet 1% minimum, and then there's also incentives for them to do better. This also covers cooperative and municipal utilities. So currently, they don't have any standards to meet, so we're including them in this bill, so they also have to meet these percentages, or they have to pay into a program that's going to accomplish energy efficiency programs in their community. So kind of as a coalition, we were pushing for a bit stronger percentages. We wanted the electric utilities to meet 2% and the gas to meet 1.5. So those have been lowered a little bit. So we can still push for those to be stronger. We definitely don't want them to get any lower. This bill also allows for electrification, so that's kind of an important piece in some of the utilities. They can switch from natural gas appliances to electric appliances and heat pumps and have that count towards energy waste reduction. And then there's also a minimum spending amount required specifically for low-income communities. Okay, any questions there? Yes.
You're saying the utilities would be allowed to promote electrification, is what you're saying. So I'm thinking they just didn't want to, and that they always could, and it was allowed. But are you saying it was not, that they are not, at this time, they're not allowed to like promote heat pumps and electric things?
No, so they are allowed to currently, but in the statute as written, our current energy waste reduction standards, electrification doesn't count as reducing energy waste.
So they don't have the incentive.
Yeah, not under this standard. So we add that in. That was a big thing for the municipal and cooperative utilities. They haven't been required to meet these standards for the past few years, but they still have programs of their own, and those are heavily focused on electrification, is what they've told us. So they really wanted to preserve that and have that be a part of reaching this goal. Cool. And so messaging with this bill is just the more energy efficiency we do in households, the less energy households will use. It'll lower their bills, and we're also lowering the amount of emissions that are coming from the energy that we're using. So we get that climate impact while also lowering people's bills. I think that's all I have. So any questions overall? Yeah.
This might be a little out of your expertise, but as far as the Public Service Commission, I was thinking that on the 1% cap, I mean, if they just got it out of the statutes and they let the Public Service Commission regulate it based on their expertise and what they know about it, it's really needed, so that they could be, the cap could be regulated, you know, based on what they know. And then the legislators could let go of this statutory type of percentage and cap and that sort of thing. I haven't heard any good reason other to have the cap or keep it, other than the utilities just don't want to lose market share. They don't want any competition. I mean, have you heard any other reason?
No, I don't know that there is a good reason for that. And earlier this year, we had the chair of the commission kind of testify that there is no good reason for the cap. So,
And could the Public Service Commission regulate it? I mean, would they be allowed to, or would they have to somebody in black and white say, okay, now you're allowed to?
I think they could regulate from what I know. And there are some other legislators working specifically on distributed generation bills. So if this gets stripped out of this package, they have kind of their own strategy for trying to raise the cap, eliminate the cap. And I think one of the versions, they do push it to the MPSC to revisit in the IRP process to raise the cap every so often. Sure.
The comments suggest that some of the substitute bills, changes have come about through utilities concerns. Have any of the changes that have occurred have reflected growing bipartisan interest in these bills at all? Is there any chance of getting any Republicans to vote for any of these bills?
I don't think that's the strategy currently. The Republican Party has been pretty strongly whipping their members to vote against this package. So it's always worth meeting with the legislators and seeing if we can convince them to support it. I think a lot of the negotiation has been happening with more of the moderate Democrats who might just care more about utility or labor or industry interests. So I think that's where a lot of the negotiating has been happening, but they could always bring in some Republicans too, potentially.
Nick, go ahead, and then we can have lots of conversation right after this and after we talk a little bit more. Go ahead,
Good
Nick,
point.
and then I'll host.
After those that are going to be in meetings tomorrow with Republicans, I think it's really important to focus in on that energy efficiency bill. If there's
Yep.
one bill we can throw our vote, that's probably going to be where it is. You know, acknowledge that, okay, the 100% bill might be a bridge too far for you. This one is all about saving money, saving energy. It's time tested and proven. Cleave that away from your views on climate change and just focus on saving Michiganders money. So that's where I'm hoping for maybe a vote or two. I think it's an uphill climb.
Will you return to the main piece? No, to my,
Oh,
yeah,
escape.
I think I'll just show the overview again. Yeah, there, we'll just do that. Everybody, Carly, now
All right.
let's give her a hand.
Thank you.
And let me frame this for some of you with a lot of really specific questions. Here's my epiphany. we elected a pro-climate majority, and we're not used to it. The folks who've been working on this stuff, questions about substitutes, right? This is a moving target right now. I think our climate movement is not used to having that opportunity. And so that is how I would think about today and going into tomorrow. Here are the bills as they stand, right? Here are the amendments and changes that have been happening to them as those legislators have been in conversation with this coalition, with several other groups, right? Yes, the utilities. That's the sausage getting made, folks. And we haven't been so lucky to be on that part of the process for a long time. So I think there's a lot of difference in how we are approaching tomorrow. And I just wanted to run back through it is changing in real time, right? So the 100% clean energy standard, and you're right to ask questions. What does clean mean? Not very much. What does carbon-free mean, right? Yes, that includes things like biogas, natural gas, other supposedly clean technologies, nuclear, right? The renewable does have that definition of solar, wind, and small hydro, right, from the 2016 energy legislation. You know, Michigan Climate Action Network loves these expansions to the Public Service Commission, right, giving them some more authority. In fact, we won a court case in 2020 that said you already have to include climate in that, folks. So we want this to go even above and beyond that. So just bear in mind, right, there's still going to be changes. That's what a day of action like tomorrow is all about. For you to be messaging, we want these things. I don't want maybe nuclear or biogas. What is that definition? These are questions that you should be asking your legislator tomorrow and making sure they know what your positions are. And I just wanted to take one quick moment. Our EJ Caucus member who was going to come today couldn't be here, and so you're stuck with me for just a little bit as an ally to the environmental justice community and the Michigan Alliance for Justice and Climate. And to answer this sort of political continuum question, right, that's why we have two different sign-ons, right? There's a massive package that is going through, and our environmental justice colleagues are really helping us out and pull that continuum out by calling for 100% renewable standard and to meet that, right, by 2030. That's how we pull out the ends and get to those medians that we really want, to eliminate that cap on solar, right? I know that's what many of you have been working for so long. To raise it to 5%, great. But that's how these things got in those bills, folks. Because the environmental justice community and some of the bipartisan bills are pushing for more renewables, for more authority, to eliminate the cap, for things like community solar. We see those get added to those bills. So Tim, the answer to your question is yes. The community solar is now at least a pilot project in that bill. The cap is now part of the other bill. It's not where we want it to be yet. That's why we need you to go out there and talk about the things that are important to you tomorrow. So please sign on, right, to both of these pieces. I know we want that 750 magic number to be in person tomorrow, but the other thing that you can do through Michigan Climate Action Network and many other groups, right, is to sign on and show your public support for these things. It's going to be a bit of a moving target for a little while as we continue to see what comes out, but you can keep pushing for the things you want. And how we really talk to legislators, I want to invite up now, I'll get to your talk in a minute. We want to invite up League of Conservation voters, and Carly, I might need your help to get out of here, and I might be able to do it, Hudson. From League of Conservation voters, Hudson Villeneuve. Is Logan with us too? Oh, and there's Logan, that's right. Logan Boris are going to come up and talk to us just a little bit more about how we talk to our legislators and engage in those effective conversations. What did Dominique say? 100 legislators and 150 signed up, something like that? Come on up. I think I might be able to do it. It's been a long time since I used a PC, huh? Okay, I'm going to leave it to you guys from there.
Let's see. Oh, slideshow. Oh, what happened? Okay, great. Great. Yeah, thank you for having us. My name is Hudson Villeneuve, and I'm the Federal Government Affairs Coordinator with Michigan LCV. Normally do our lobbying in D.C., but it's all hands on deck for this moment, so I've been roaming the halls of Lansing for the past couple weeks, and I'll let Logan introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Logan Force. I am the legislative aide for the Michigan League of Conservation Voters. I am on the state government affairs team, so I am based here in Lansing. I do a lot of work with our state lawmakers in the House and in the Senate, which is why we're really excited to talk to you about what to do in those lawmaker meetings tomorrow. We do have over 150 scheduled, so there will be just a mass exodus of people talking to lawmakers tomorrow about climate action and really meeting this 100% clean energy standard.
Thanks, Logan. So this presentation is less about the substance of the bills, but kind of how to facilitate the meeting. And I want to preface that, so for this first step, designate a group leader. If you're participating in the Youth-Led Lobby Day, there will be group leaders pre-assigned who have some experience. So if you're a little nervous, you've never met with a lawmaker before, and you're just like, oh my gosh, they're going to ask me so many questions, don't worry, there is someone who's familiar with the bill package who will be with you. What we want you to focus on is the reason you're there and your strengths. So if you have a personal story about why you think climate action is important, that's what's going to persuade these lawmakers. These lawmakers have been bombarded with packets of information about these bills for months, and you will have a packet with you to give them the basic information about the bills. But don't feel like you need to memorize all the bill numbers, the percentages, and the targets by the year. That is going to be provided for you, and really the substance of the meeting should focus on your personal story or where you're coming from. If you run a business that would benefit from clean energy, if you're part of the youth groups that are meeting with us, really explain why acting on climate is important to you. So as you prepare for the meetings tomorrow, I want you to kind of identify your strength and come with a 30-second kind of elevator pitch on why you think climate action is important. And one thing I'll say is, from meeting with these lawmakers the past few weeks, a lot of them haven't read the bills. And so you'll be surprised to learn that. They'll say, oh, I support the package, but they are not aware of the substitutes. So just by being here today and hearing the great presentation earlier, you probably know more about this legislation than 80% of the lawmakers out there. They're not going to pin you on a specific point of the legislation, so don't worry about that. Just focus on what you know and why climate action is so important. So it is a little bit important to learn about the lawmaker you are meeting with. Most of the folks on the Democratic side are very supportive. Some have concerns. Most of them are actually co-sponsors, which is great. But like I said earlier, they're unaware of the changes that are happening, especially if they're on the House side, because this bill is moving through the Senate right now. They may not be aware of how the bills have changed since the original introduction in the summer. So we want to kind of make them aware that the climate movement is unhappy with the direction, the way some of the changes are being made, and kind of re-emphasize the points that we need a strong bill, we need strong standards, and we need a meaningful carbon-free definition to pass this legislation. So you want to learn if they support the legislation, and if they do, you want to be really, really thankful for that, because they're taking a big stand. And so you want to be complimentary of them throughout the meeting, and make sure to thank them for their climate advocacy and give them the kind of political capital to keep making these tough decisions. So if you're meeting with a Republican or you're meeting with a lawmaker who's like, oh, I haven't read the bills yet, I need to see the details, I support climate action, but I gotta see the meat and potatoes of the thing, you want to ask them what's holding them back from supporting the bill directly. You want to kind of figure out where their sticking point is, and that's when you can lean into those personal stories and talking points. And I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but I'll let Logan kind of talk about how to handle that when you're in the meeting.
All right, thank you. Just bringing back the mic to Logan level. So starting off with the introduction in the lawmaker meetings, when you walk into the office, you really want to greet their staff and then obviously greet the lawmaker as well. You want to introduce every single person in the group, allow them to introduce themselves. That's typically a good place to start. And if possible, make a personal connection to the lawmaker. So for example, if I go in, if I'm a constituent, you definitely want to mention that. If you're within their district, you want to say, I'm a constituent. These are the issues that I care about. Let's talk about this package today. That's what I'm here for. So that's getting to my second point. Explain the purpose clearly. So what is the specific topic of this meeting? So for tomorrow, obviously, that will be touching on these bill packages, whether they're a co-sponsor or not a co-sponsor yet. If they're Democrat or Republican. We really just want to make sure that we're emphasizing why we're there to talk to them specifically and what we're asking them for. And as Hudson had mentioned earlier, assigning those group roles, specifically a group leader and a note taker, will be really, really important to catching those key details from the content of the meeting and what you discuss. So the group leader will just be there not to control the conversation, but to control the direction. So if things get a little off track, we can make sure that we touch on, making the ask and explaining the details of the package, but also making sure to catch those key details from the note taker, on paper or in a laptop, so that we can bring that all back to the group. Remember to pass the mic, allow other people to speak up, and also pause to give the lawmaker a chance to respond to what you're saying, whether they have any questions about the package, comments about the package, or whether they have any concerns as well.
One thing that's also important is to be very direct with the lawmakers when you're asking questions. Like I said, the vast majority are going to be supportive of climate action in a general sense, and that's great that we have them on board with that. But the devil's in the details, so we want to ask them if they have any hangups, if they're hearing things happening, hearing about changes being made, if they're hearing about certain opposition groups from the utilities, or whether it's labor or any other group that might have problems with it. We want to collect that intel. So these meetings are as much about persuasion as gathering intel so that we can come up with the next game plan as this bill is being changed. So be very direct and ask questions, even if they are supportive of the legislation.
Yes, thank you. So specifically following what Hudson just said, asking for feedback, asking about any questions or comments, any worries they might have with the package. Some of those that might get brought up are the details that we talked about today, whether they are like, is nuclear included in the package? I can't support this if there's no nuclear. Clearing that up, that is included, that will really pull in some of those lawmakers as well. Like we've said, a lot of them have not been super clear on the package because they have not taken the time to read it yet. So you guys will be the #1 advocates while you're in the room with them. And then fifth, I have back up your position. So, bringing in the evidence that there is federal dollars for this legislation and moving that, through quicker will allow us to access more of those funds, but also why it's important to you, whether it's important in your community, anything specific, to you personally, bringing those personal stories. That's really going to support that, your point to the lawmaker and why they need to support this legislation. And so sixth, we have make the ask. So that's, will you be able to support this legislation? And can we count on you to do that? And they'll either give you a yes or no answer, potentially also say, I'll have to follow up with you once I actually read the bills. And that is all good, but we want to definitely capture those answers. And whether that is a yes or a no, then ask them, tell them thank you if they say yes, but also ask them for further details to what they would need to support that package if they are a no. So then seventh, definitely thank them for their time. Yeah, thank them for their time, and make sure to follow up with any resources or questions that they had asked in the meeting with some answers or extra, just information. You can send that to their inbox afterwards, or make sure to get their contact information to follow up. And then additionally, we do have take a picture with the lawmaker. We really want to emphasize this on social media and just broadly on all of our communications teams that we were meeting with these lawmakers and that they are supportive of these packages, that we came as a huge group, and that there's a lot of support behind this from the community. So we said take a picture with the lawmaker to thank them for the meeting.
And that's about all we have. Do folks have any questions about kind of how the logistics of this will work? Yeah, these are typically about a half hour, so you'll have to be fairly quick and to the point. Once you get in, that's if the lawmaker is on time. You might start out with a staffer. These things are very flexible. They may have to leave after 10 minutes and you barely gotten started. So you want to keep the intros fairly quick and kind of get right into it as soon as you can. But if a lawmaker does have to leave, honestly, a lot of the work is done at the staff level. And so making the connections with the staffers that are there and doing the follow-up is probably 90% of the battle. You're rarely going to have a breakthrough with the lawmaker in that moment where you just change their mind, it's usually going to be a follow-up with the information and then a staff discussion between their staff and the lawmaker, and then they'll come to a conclusion. So, great question. Yep, we'll have a folder of information with kind of like the outlines of the bills, where the coalition's goals are, and so forth. And there'll be a digital follow-up as well that your group lead will take care of.
I'm guessing that those of us who don't know yet won't know until tomorrow morning at 8 who we'll be meeting with?
Yes, there will be lobby leads with like these signs with numbers on them, and the youth folks that are coming will know who they have, because this is a youth-led lobby day, but not youth exclusive, so everyone is welcome. And you'll just be able to join whichever group is going on. I think most of the meetings are happening in the early afternoon portion of the day.
So I'm confused. I'm obviously not a youth, and you're saying that I won't get a schedule, but I could join with young people who seem...
Denise, you want to take that? You
guys are doing great. First, let's give them a hand, right? Excellent advice. And I don't see Dominique here. So there is a schedule for the day. The lawmakers' appointments have been made, and as I understand it, we meet at 8 a.m. in order to get our packets and get that schedule and get one last sort of round of training, and then the day is yours, right? Because this is a huge day of action, imagine the logistics if I actually schedule an appointment for 750 people. Right? If you've ever done any of this work, that's just not how we can make this happen, right? And so the coalition has organized those appointments with the lawmakers, and there's a group lead for that, and we hope you'll show up for all the ones that you can, all day long, right? Hopefully our districts is where we want to hit first,
So you
right?
will get a choice to kind of see the schedule and pick who you want to join.
That's as I understand it. I'm showing up tomorrow morning and figuring it out too, folks. This is what we mean by a day of action, right? And this is our Citizens Climate Lobby, folks. So that's why they have all the super specific questions about lobbying, because they do this in a very, very longer form educational way for their members throughout the year. A little bit different, right? For a day of action. That's why I don't really think about this as lobbying. This is education in a day of action. This is getting all of you in front of folks to make sure that the most important pieces are not backslided on at all, and maybe we even can go further. That is the goal and the point of tomorrow, right? These specifics will continue to change over the next, well, I hope not too long. They got till what, November 7th? Let me make sure that we can close out our YouTube, folks. So let's give Michigan League of Conservation vote. Michigan Environmental Council, Carly Knott, thank you so much. Michigan Energy, Michigan Jobs Coalition, I think Dominique, and they're probably ran away to make sure we have packets of to our facilities here. This was my first time hanging out in Heritage during the pandemic, 2020. So now you can say you've been here, and we're kind of experimenting with the location, and I'd be remiss without all this camera work and sound and YouTube. Thank you, sir. And if you haven't yet, we've got a little bit 4:59. Got to round out by 5 is why I'm pushing this agenda a little bit along. But if we do have about a half hour here, Trevor is set up over there and is still recording your climate stories, right? So very short 2-minute interviews about why this climate action matters to you. And he's compiling all of those for the legislators to be able to see after too, right? So if you haven't done that yet, please do that. And make sure you put your entry into our interactive art and order some food, because a lot of people RSVP'd and they're not here today, and so we got to eat their food, all right? So sorry, YouTubers, you don't get any of that piece. What else? What am I forgetting? To my the amazing MiCAN team and to all of you coming out to the conversation that can continue to happen here in the room for about the next. Thanks, everybody.